Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Albers, and welcome to This Week in Anderson on the Big Guy Sports Podcast on USBN Sports. And as always, I'm joined with my co-host, Steve Ellis. And Steve, I'll tell you what, I am super excited to have our next guest. It brings back a lot of childhood memories for me and you, because we were in the 8th grade when we really remember the basketball team. And I remember taking that trip up to Millette Hall to watch that game. And Dick Sanders is joining us, Steve. And I tell you what, it's pretty exciting for both of us.
It is such an honor, because as we talked about, Danny, I mean, we grew up, idolizing Coach here and what he was able to accomplish at Anderson. So, this has been long overdue, and I'm excited for this.
Yeah, it really is. And joining us is the former basketball coach at Anderson High School, and Dick Sanders. And Dick, we really appreciate you joining us tonight.
Well, I'm honored to be on. Anderson was 10 of the best years of my life. I loved being there at Anderson. It was a tremendous opportunity for me. I had some really great young men to work with who I really enjoyed. They almost become a part of your family. So I don't know if there was 10 happier years in our lives. And of course, my kids were small then, and they grew up. They always talk about my wife bringing them up to the gym and getting McDonald's and watching us practice, and that's kind of how they grew up. So they have very fond memories of that, as do I. So it certainly was a great 10 years, and I was blessed to be given that opportunity and had tremendous support from, the school district and the athletic department and the principal. Chris Steffen was the principal, of course, and he was a great fan and supporter of Anderson athletics and Anderson basketball. So very blessed. So I'm glad to be on. Yeah. Neat.
And we really appreciate it. I know a lot of people have been looking forward to this too. And before we get into the Anderson and then what you've done after Anderson, let's go back to when you played high school. We believe you played at McNicholas High School, and then you went on and you played college football, I believe, and basketball. Is that correct? At Tennessee Chattanooga. Talk a bit about your experience by playing sports at McNicholas.
Yeah, well, I did. I went to McNick. Of course, I went to Guardian Angel, grew up in Mount Washington. So, Catholic school just kind of was the natural progression. So went to McNick. And of course, when I went to McNick, it was like I think my sophomore year may have been the first year that McNick was in the GCL. So it was a huge adjustment trying to play. We were a relatively small school playing against, and, we had boys and girls playing against Elder and Roger Bacon. And
right.
I was in the same class when Muller and LaSalle both started. So my class was the first graduating class for Muller and LaSalle. So, playing against those guys, St. X, it was a real challenge for, us. But, it was great fun. I had great coaches there, Ed Hoffer and Bob Geiser really got the best out of all of us, So it was really fun. I had a great experience there. And I was fortunate enough to play football, basketball, and baseball for, I think I got 10 varsity letters at McNick, so I was pretty lucky. I think that probably was more a function of the smallness of the school than my athletic talent. But yeah, it was great. I enjoyed it. And of course, the rivalry with Anderson was always exciting for us. It was always a big game. And football, I know we played in the first game of the year, and in basketball, it was always competitive. So yeah, it was, you kind of grew up in the same relative neighborhood and played, little, not whole baseball against all those Anderson guys. So it was fun. It was very, very, very good. I enjoyed it a lot, although, it was tough competing in the GCL.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, no doubt. And then how was that with you going to McNick and going on to play college ball? Was that the recruiting period and all that? How was that back then?
Well, yeah, I went on and, I was recruited. Basically, I was recruited mainly as a football player. I played quarterback, so I was recruited mainly as that. And interesting enough, kind of funny story. I went to Chattanooga, and one of the guys who was 2 years behind me, his dad was a coach in the Canadian League, and he kind of was going throughout, South, making contacts with colleges, and he went to see some players at Chattanooga and struck up a conversation with the coach, and he said, "Oh, well, there's this kid in Cincinnati I think you ought to look at." So that's basically how I got to Chattanooga.
Wow.
Now, I was in those days scholarships were unlimited, so I think I was on the depth chart of freshman quarterbacks. There was 5. I think I was number 5. So when I got there. So, kind of they moved all the quarterbacks somewhere else. You're either defensive back, a wide receiver, running back, or something, because I guess they figured those guys probably could, had a little bit of athletic ability. So they moved me to defensive back. And funny thing is, after that season was over, the basketball coach said he had heard that I had played basketball in high school. He asked me if I wanted to, practice with the team. I said, yeah. And so after that, at the end of the season, I actually switched my scholarship to basketball. So I played basketball for 3 years. I had a nice career. I scored about 1,200 points.
Wow.
My junior year, I averaged 19 a game. So it was fun. I remember playing. It's funny. I remember playing Xavier. We played Xavier in my junior year. I think it was my junior year. Yeah, we played Xavier in Cincinnati, and Timmy O'Connell, who I played with all through high school growing up. Timmy and I little kids, we played from second grade on together. And so Tim played for Xavier, and I think I got 30 against Xavier, and Timmy got 27 against us. So the newspaper said, well, how'd they ever lose a game with those two guys? My response was, well, I was guarding them, and we were guarding each other. We didn't guard anyone. That was a pretty interesting, kind of fun deal.
That is really cool. And then, well, let's go back real quick. Then, how did your path get to Anderson? Then after you went to college, I think you started what, in 74?
It's interesting. I think my first year I coached at Anderson was 72, maybe. Is that right? 1972, 71 or 72. I got out of college in 68. And Vietnam War was going on, so I was an ROTC grad. So I went in the Army for 2 years, got out, went back to Chattanooga, didn't have a job, of course, and I had never thought anything about coaching. But when I was in the Army, I was playing for the post team and got hurt. And so that's what I said. I got demoted from being the point guard to being the coach. So I coached that team. We wound up winning the first Army championship. So it kind of got my blood. I got out of the Army, didn't have a job. And my college coach called me and said, hey, they need a JV coach, an algebra teacher at Howard High School, which was an all-black high school in Chattanooga. Would you be interested? Well, I didn't have a job, and I had a 3-week-old child, so I figured, yeah, that'd be good. So I went to Chattanooga, coached a year there. Then the next year I coached at UT Chattanooga. They asked me to come back and help with that, so I coached a year at UT Chattanooga. And then my high school coach, Ed Hoffer, was assistant superintendent of schools at Forest Hill School District.
Yep.
And so the basketball job became open, and so Ed actually reached out to me and said, would you be interested? And I said, yeah. And so, went through the interview process, and somehow or another, they decided to give me the job. I think I was only 25 at that time. So, that was pretty young to be a varsity head coach at a really preeminent school like Anderson. So, yeah, I was very fortunate. And, so Ed Hoffer was a big part of that. And then, that's kind of how I got going, And then after that, of course, I got while I was coaching and teaching, I got my master's from Xavier and my doctorate from the University of Cincinnati. That was always a challenge. Teach all day, go practice, and then get in my car and drive over to UC and, take a class from 7:30 to 10 and then come back. Yeah. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And you have a family too.
Yeah. I had 2 young kids. So it kept me off the streets, out of the bar.
I would say so. Well, let's talk a little bit, Coach, about some of the players that, Danny and I remember that you had coached. And in fact, one of them we just interviewed not too long ago was Richdson.
Yeah.
We interviewed him. It was a great interview, some great stories that he told. But one of the things I wanted to ask you about is, Frank was the basketball coach at Anderson, which, by the way, he says hello. And he's the head coach again. But in all the years that he was the head coach, and I helped him for a long time as well, we never had any Division I players. And you're going to have to help me here, because I think you had at least 3 that you had developed. Kevin Galbraith, Rick Elliott, and Tim Ferguson. Am I missing anybody?
Oh, yeah, Mark Reed.
Mark Reed, of course.
Yeah, really good player. You said Kevin, Fergie. Who else did you say?
Kevin Galbraith.
Rick Elliott, did you say Rick?
Yeah.
Rick Elliott.
Yeah, well, I
Tim
had John Deeds. John Deeds played a couple of years, I think, at Northeast Louisiana. Frank Fulmer played a little bit.
That's right. Yeah. Rick Becker.
Yeah, Rick Becker played, at Southern Miss. So, yeah, those guys. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else. I think that was probably it. So maybe 6 or 7, I would guess,
Yeah, tremendous. And I just remember, like the 77, 78, somewhere around there, just incredible athletes, 76, incredible athletes. And then, you go on to, 1979, it's when, that almost like a dream team came in with Joe Dayton and Tim Ferguson and Frank Brandy and those guys come in, and you get to see how good those guys were going to be for you, just their sophomore years, let alone their junior and senior year. So talk a little bit about that team right there.
Yeah, well, I had 2 really good classes back to back, and I think to really have a quality program, that's what you really need. We kind of went through some ups and downs. My first year, I didn't think anybody expected us to be very good, because I think the whole team had graduated and they had a mediocre year the year before I got there. So we put in a new system, had a really good year. That's when Kevin, Galbraith was a sophomore, had Frank Vomering and, some of those guys, Mark Kelly. So those guys all kind of really bought in, and we completely changed the way we played. We played full court pressure and played as fast as we could. So I think that was good. And then we kind of lost some guys. We had a couple people move out of town. The next year was a struggle, and then we kind of built it back up with the Becker, Reed, Elliott, Dotson group. But then the group you talk about was, tremendous. We had 2 really good classes back to back. We had John Deeds, Jimmy Dayton, Dana Brown, Dan
Fleming,
Cameron, AJ Scavo. So that was a really
Joe
good
Moon.
Yeah, and so then right on top of that, we had Joe and Fergie and Frank, and I think maybe Jeff Harris was in that class too.
Jeff Harris.
Then we had a pretty good class behind that. We had Dave Gilio and Kevin Dostal and
Sean Burdick, Mike Albers.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Sean Burdick. So we kind of, it worked really good for those years because those were good players. It was very competitive, and you had, to be honest, you had great players with Joe and Fergie. those were they complemented each other so well too. And then you had Frank, who could run the show. You had Ronnie Evans, who gave you a big guy, and then Tony Dunaway was a really nice facilitator and a really nice piece for you, So, and then you had those juniors on the bench, Dave Gilio and Sean Burdick and Kevin Dostal. So that was a nice group. When I had Deeds and Jimmy Dayton and Danny Fleming, they all brought something to the dance, and it was a good group to work with.
Yeah, I just remember, I think it was the 80-81 year was the first time they'd won the league in forever. And I can remember like it was yesterday, because those games were just incredible to watch, and just packed gyms. And, and of course, even though we don't feel like we're that old, Danny, but we were young then, because those guys, Frank and Fergie and Jody, they were larger than life, to us they were. And they were just, Joe Dayton was just scary to watch, how good he really was. And I can remember when you guys beat Oak Hills, and it was the first time we winning a league in forever. And you came home, and it's a long drive from Oak Hills, and my mom and dad had a whole stack of Big Macs or something from McDonald's waiting for them in the lobby. And we watched the news and watched the highlights of that win, and because it was a big accomplishment.
Yeah, that was a great team. Those guys were so competitive, and they worked really hard. Joe was such an interesting player because he played so hard. Joe wasn't. Joe was such a great all-around athlete. That he didn't devote as much time to basketball as Fergie and Frank and Ronnie Evans and those guys. But
Right.
Joe gave us that piece of this incredible competitiveness guy. And Joe would always make plays that won. You know, there are special athletes out there that make plays that win games. And Joe was one of those guys. It didn't matter what it needed to be, whether it was a defensive steal, whether it was an offensive rebound, whether it was a block shot. He would just do things that he just could do things. You know, I mean, I'll never forget. We were playing Taft in the NCAA tournament.
That's funny.
We were playing the state tournament. We were playing Taft, and they had a really good player named Kennard Johnson. He went on to play at Western Kentucky and then in the NBA. I'll never forget. We come down on a break, and, you know, Frank pulls, and Joe's running the right lane, and Frank pulls up, you know, and shoots. You know, they kind of defend, and they don't defend him. He dribbles up the free throw line just like Tom just pulled up and shot a little 15-foot jump shot, hits the back of the rim, the flange, and bounces up. Well, Kennard Johnson's there, you know, jumping to get the rebound. But Joe goes over the top of him and tips it in, and you go, you know, he can't do that. You know what I mean? It's just a remarkable play that he could never do, but he did it when he needed to do it. You know what I mean? It was just that's the way he was. And then, you know, you had Fergie, who was such a great shooter. And, you know, the way we ran the offense, you know, I think with the rest of them, you know, Tim was one of the great, you know, quick catch and shoot guys you've ever seen. The ball barely touched his hands and he hit it off. Now, you know, if he put it on the floor more than once, it probably was going to be a turnover.
Well, you know, I tell people all the time that I always wonder what Fergie would have averaged with the 3-point line.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he was a great shooter. I mean, he was a great pure shooter. And, you know, actually was a pretty good rebounder and not a bad defender. But, you know, he really fit what we tried to do well, you know, because he could, you know, we'd get out on the break and Frank make good decisions and get it to Joe or Fergie or, you know, Tony trailing. And you know, but he was a great pull-up spot shooter. No question about it. And they can take the ball to goal better than anybody, you know.
Those were so fun to watch. I can remember my mom and dad, they couldn't wait to go to games, and I went with them. And, I mean, all those years, but obviously especially your last couple of years. But one of the things I remember, and I still have it to this day, if you remember this, Coach, is this towel.
I do. I sure do. Yeah, that was pretty cool. Yeah.
And we would wave that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was neat. That was really, really neat. Yeah, I mean, it was really fun. I mean, you know, I think the whole community got behind that, you know, at that time particularly got behind that team and that program. It was, you know, you kind of hear stories about, you know, Indiana high school basketball and how it kind of brings a community together. Well, I think those teams really did that, you know. It was really neat time.
Well, you had a JV coach that I had a ton of respect for to this day, and Mike Center.
Yep.
Who I think the world of, and then you also had you know, at the time, which is an unbelievable athletic director, and Joe Miller. So talk a little bit about those guys and what their impact was.
Yeah, well, Mike was great. Mike and I were very close. You know, we sit there and talk and strategize, and you know, the great thing about Mike was Mike understood that we were trying to build a program, you know, to win at the varsity level. So, you know, we talk a lot about, he was great at teaching fundamentals and very willing to run, you know, a system that we would just incorporate into the varsity program. Sometimes probably didn't help wins and losses, but it helped down the road. You know what I mean? He probably could have played a little bit different way, maybe won a few more games, but we wanted to try to play so they would be ready when they got to the varsity. So I really appreciate that from Mike. And he was just solid as the day is long, came to work hard every day, and, you know, held people accountable, and that's what we tried to do, you know. And so Mike was a great fit for me. And then Joe Miller, Joe wasn't maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. Joe had 2 terms as athletic director. I think he was there when I got there, and then I think he stepped down for a little while, and then he came back. So I think Joe may have been there. He was there surely when I first got there. It was an important piece of it, very supportive. And then he stepped away for a while and then came back. And then, of course, you know, there at the end, you know, he really was very important in the creating that energy and enthusiasm and support, and being there for us when we needed to. Because that's really important. To have somebody that had your back, and I felt Joe did, and then of course Chris Steffen was the principal, and he was really, really supportive. So
Great guy.
very blessed to have those kind of guys. When they were great at just letting me coach. You know what I mean? So that was. That it was fun, because sometimes you get into some other stuff that you've got to do, but they pretty much kind of took a lot of that away and just let me coach basketball, which was fun.
Perfect.
Coach, when last time you and I talked was at the reunion that you had at for the basketball team at the gym, and we kind of talked about, there was a story that you told me, it's still to this day just I'll never forget, was the story that you told me about we talked about the game losing to Moeller to Byron Larkin, and then the referee giving Fergie a tee, and talk a little bit about that. That was for giving a look or something, he said, wasn't it?
Yeah. When we lost Muller, the last game I coached at Anderson, was a shame, because that team was so good. I think we really had a chance to, compete at the at the state tournament level, and because that team was really good. And unfortunately, I'll never forget this. Frank, who had been a very, very good player for me for 3 years, and kind of the leader and got us going in offense and defended really good. He was really sick. He had the flu, of all things. And so, you kind of say, and we had other good players, don't get me wrong, that could have played, and you kind of make a decision. Okay, Frank said, I can play. And, I had enough confidence and trust that he could fight through that, to play when sick. And that, that's pretty hard to do. How you feel when you got the flu. He wasn't feeling very good at all. And he played, but he clearly didn't play up to his level, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, we didn't play a great game against them, but we're hanging in there, and I think we got a really good chance to win. And then with the 2 or 3 minutes and the score's tied, or we're up 1 or something like this, they call a 5th foul on Fergie. And he just kind of, all of a sudden he gets a technical foul, and I'm going, what's this all, and at that time, I don't know if you guys remember this, but at that time, the High School Athletic Association, that their title? Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
They had a rule that the coach couldn't stand up, so you had to sit on the bench the whole time. If you stood up, it was an automatic technical foul. Wow. So you really couldn't, you could yell at him, but it really didn't do much good, because, it was, I'll never forget, the play was on the other end of the court and everything. Fergie fouls out. They call it technical. You're going, what's going on? I said, what'd you say to him? He said, I didn't say anything. So, so that winds up being a foul. So I think they get 2 shots, then 2 shots, then the ball, you know what I mean? So that was kind of the turning point in the game. I think we wound up losing by 1 or something like that. 2. And so, after the game, and I'd never done this my whole career, I went to the referee's locker room, and I said to him, what did that kid say to you to get the technical foul? And he said, he didn't say anything to me. And I said, well, why didn't you give me the technical foul? He said, I didn't like the look he got on his face.
Oh, my
Come
gosh.
on, man. We're playing in the state tournament, and you're making those kind of decisions. So, that was such a shame, and I have to say it helped form my opinion of referees. So at ETSU games or VCU games, sometimes, I might be a little over the top with my
Is that why you had a towel with you, Coach?
That probably was, so I could talk into the towel, fight the towel. Yeah.
That's right.
There's a lot of truth to that, you know what I mean? I probably need one now at the ETSU games, I'm probably the only AD or former AD in the country. We had a great year last year here at ETSU. The guy I hired is a guy named Steve Forbes. We were 30-4 and, really, really good. I'm probably the only, AD in the country where the coach will look over and go, calm down. We got it under control. So, yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, so I think that probably helped form that opinion, that call on Fergie, because the referee didn't like a look on his face. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Oh.
Well, talk a little bit about that real quick. So after that game, is that when you went to Memphis, correct? Right after
I went to Memphis. Yeah, I went to Memphis State. I got hired down there to help them build, some programs. That was it was a tough decision, but I just felt, career-wise, it's kind of what I wanted to do. I love coaching. I love being with the guys, but, I thought maybe if I got into athletic administration, I could do more, help in other ways with more student athletes. So went to Memphis, stayed there about 4.5 years as assistant associate athletic director. And then I was fortunate enough to get the opportunity to go to Virginia Commonwealth I think I was there for 22 years as athletic director, and I feel good about the program we built there.
Mm-hmm.
It was an interesting challenge when I got there, and I think by the end, we had one of the preeminent non-football playing programs in the country. And while our basketball got really pretty good, I think we were good in a lot of things. We played for the national championship in tennis, and went to the NCAA in baseball. I think 12 out of 16 years, twice were within one game of going to College World Series. So yeah, I was pretty proud of what we did at VCU, and then I retired and was just hanging out, doing a little consulting. And the president here, a new president at ETSU, called me and said, "Hey, can you come up? We're developing a strategic plan for the university, and athletics is one of the areas. Can you come up and look at it and tell me what you think?" So I did, and then came up here a couple times, and the president said, "Hey, can you help me?" Well, he actually said to me, he said, "I'm going to make a change in the athletic director. He's getting ready to retire." He said, "Do you think I should hire somebody right now, or do you think I should put somebody in an interim position?" And this was like December. I said, "Well, Dr. Nolan, I'd put somebody in an interim position. Your pool of talent's going to be a lot better after basketball season. Right. So that's what I would do. I'd do the search, after basketball season." He said, "Well, I don't know anybody who could do that. I don't have anybody on my staff. Could you do that for a couple months?" And so I talked to my wife, and she said, "Yeah, go up there. You'd like doing it for a couple months." Well, I got here, and I joke about it, but I was here like 3 days, and President Nolan said to me, "I've decided to restart football. Can you help me restart football?" So when I said, yeah, I knew it wasn't a couple months gig. So I stayed as an athletic director for 5 years, got football going. We kind of moved into a new basketball facility, built an on-campus football stadium, got football going. And, my goal was, and it was funny because Carl Torbush was our coach. I hired Carl, and when we were recruiting players, and we didn't have anything. We didn't have a facility. We didn't have a team. We didn't have anything. We're recruiting that first class. I'm saying, yeah, our goal is in 4 years to win the conference championship and go to the FCS playoffs. And, Carl took me aside after this meeting with all these recruits. He said, "Hey, Doc, can you kind of calm that down a little bit? Those are pretty big expectations, not even to have a program and win the conference in 4 years." Well, the amazing thing is we did. So we went to the FCS playoffs in the 4th year. So it was good. We built an on-campus stadium. So yeah, I'm proud of what we accomplished here too. And the President Nolan, I was fortunate to have a great president here, Brian Nolan. Class guy. So yeah, I've been very blessed, very fortunate.
That's great. And just speaking about that with your president, tell me if I'm right on this story or not, but when you were getting ready to, I guess, retire or whatever you were getting ready to do, they had a roast for you. And I guess did he come to Anderson and you met some of your former players and he wanted to talk about that, how cool that was for you? Yeah,
well, Dr. Nolan wanted to come to Cincinnati. I think he just wanted to gather material against me, you know what I mean? We had about, I don't know how many, we had 25, 26 guys get together. And this was all President Nolan's idea. And it was great. So I got to see, a lot of people I hadn't seen in years,
Great.
I still see some of the guys. I mean, I see Rick Elliott every once in a while. If I get back to Cincinnati, I'll see Frank, but those are probably the two main guys, that I, have stayed in pretty close contact with, because some of them, like Mark Reed lives in California, and Jerry Schatz in North Carolina, and so a lot of those guys have moved away. Danny Fleming and Cam DeVente. I mean, they're all they're in different places. So yeah, it was really cool. And so we had 25 or 26 people, and I think of all these guys as those kids who played for me. Well, some of them have retired. I said, "Oh, you retired last year." I'm going, "Oh my goodness gracious," you know what I mean? Like, I think Kevin Galbraith, I think he told me he had retired, and Chris Tucker, he was retiring and moving to Florida. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, oh my goodness. But yeah, they all had a bunch of stories to tell. Our president, he loved it, because, some of the things I'd say to him probably always weren't the most positive, so.
I'm sure they saw a good side of you, Coach. So speaking of, years gone by, so I can remember your kids and, so how old are they now and what are they up to?
Yeah, but Leslie, my daughter, just turned 50, so that tells you something.
Oh, gosh.
So yeah, she's dean of students at Bon Secours College of Nursing. So she's in education. She's a superstar, and she has a son, 15-year-old Jack, and so he's a great kid.
Yeah.
And Jimmy is here, and well, not here, but he's in Richmond also. Jimmy's vice president of a technology company called ARM Software, and so he's in product development of that. And he has 2 children. He has a son 6 and a daughter 4. So yeah, the great kids. When I'm in Richmond, I'm in Johnson City right now, so I probably spend a little more time in Johnson City than I do in Richmond. But yeah, they're both there. They're both doing well. Both happily married, have a nice family. So yeah, they kid about, they had those memories of Anderson High School gym, and they remember, just maybe 10 days ago, they kind of had a roast. They called it a roast and toast for me. So we had some of my former players, Rick and Mark Reed, and some of those other guys. So yeah, it was fun. It was a great time. Doesn't get any better than those 10 years for me.
I think the last time I saw your kids was at Coney Island.
Probably, yeah. We used to go down there. Mary used to take them down there a lot.
All the time.
That was our summer deal. I used to have that, little basketball camp in the morning from I think 8:30 to 11:30. And probably have,
I was there.
Yeah, maybe 40 kids, 30 to 40 kids, and I'll never forget the big deal was we'd have contests there at the end and give popsicles away.
Oh yeah.
We Frisch's used to give us coupons for a big boy and an order of fries and a milkshake. We gave those away too. Yeah, that was cool.
I can remember, Coach, some of the coaches that you had there, like Dan Bartholomew and Rick Carr, and Jeff Watterson, some of those other guys that were in those camps. And those were, again, at the time, they were like larger than life to me.
Yeah, well, Danny and Rick, they coached, I guess, 7th, 8th grade middle school. And then I think maybe we moved up a little bit. I think maybe Danny coached freshman for me 1 year. Rick coached freshman for a few years. But yeah, they were, once again, we'd meet, and, they were very willing to, try to install our system and our way we played. And so I think that was good. And they'd help scout and do other things for me. So yeah, we had a good group. You're only as good as those kind of people. And, I had the best. So
that's fun.
I'm very lucky. Yeah.
So did I see right, Coach, that you're doing something like similar to what we're doing here with a podcast for young coaches? Yeah,
we are. I have a podcast. It's called From the Locker Room with Coach and Doc. So it's my co-host is Mike Smith, who was, the coach of the Atlanta Falcons for 7 years, 3-time NFL Coach of the Year. So Mike's great guy, great guy. And so, the ones we've done recently, I think we just posted the one with Brian Billick. So we just did one with Brian Billick, and interesting. He had neat stories, Super Bowl team. Yeah, he had Ray Lewis, and he was telling the story. I don't want to overspeak, but he was telling the story that they were, I guess their defense was sensational, with Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and a bunch of those guys. And he was telling the story that I guess I forget the exact number, but they had, like, for 4 straight games, the defense had not allowed a touchdown, and they were like within 1 quarter of setting the all-time record for the NFL. And he said, then they were playing the Browns, and the Browns were awful. So they're pretty sure they're going to get this record. Well, they kick off the Browns, and the Browns get the ball, and they march it right down the field for a touchdown. So he was going to go over and talk to the defense, and they come off the field, and Ray Lewis says to him, "Coach, I got this. Don't worry." And so he said the rest of the game, the Browns only scored or only gained 16 yards the rest of the game. He said Ray Lewis had a real hard talk with the guys, but it's interesting hearing those kind of stories. And they talk about Tony Siragusa and a bunch of those guys that played for them. So it was interesting. So yeah, we do that. And then we just did one with Wade Phillips, who, was a long time coach in the NFL, 4 different teams he was the head coach for. So it's just interesting to hear those guys. I did one with Forbes, Coach Forbes, and Mike Holbert, who was 3 times Ryder Cup assistant captain, just hearing the stories that those guys have, but also talking about leadership and coaching. So yeah, if anybody wants to go to it, I'll plug it. It's From the Locker Room with Coach and Doc, and
It's awesome.
we have our own YouTube channel. So if you go in there and subscribe, that'd be great. We've only started. We've done 4 or 5. I think there's 5 episodes.
No, definitely check it out.
Yeah, on our YouTube channel. Yeah, so subscribe. It's pretty good because, we've got commitments to get, I think, John Smoltz is going to jump on. And
Oh, cool.
Anthony Grant and Buzz Williams, and Mike's going to get one of your favorite guys, I'm sure, being Cincinnati, Marvin Lewis, because Mike coached with Marvin. They're big buddies.
Yep.
Just about a bunch of those NFL guys, So he's going to probably get, Mike thinks he can get Ray Lewis and Tony Gonzalez and Matt Ryan. So those will be interesting deals. And I'm, like I said, I can get Shaka and just a bunch of people. So it'll be fun, So I hope people, it's just, like I said, we just started. So
I love it.
Yeah, it's our own YouTube channel, From the Locker Room with Coach and Doc. So if you just, if you Google FTLR pod, yeah, you'll get us,
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely do that. I'll subscribe to it. I'd love to check it out.
That'd be great. Yeah. How long you guys been doing this?
We started, this is really weird. So with all the stuff that was going on with COVID, Steve and I were just kind of, everything's just so negative. Everything's just so, and we just thought, you know what, why don't we just talk to people in Anderson that we know that have either played or just contact, and we started getting just great feedback. Everybody's like, we love hearing stories about that. And then so we started making a list, and, we had you on a list, but we're like, okay, I don't know. We had to get a hold of Frank. We had to get a hold of other people to get, so we've been doing it, April, I think?
Yeah, this is like number 25.
Oh, wow. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we love doing it, and it's really we have a great time. So what we try to do is we try. Oh, Steve, you want to talk something about his book? Or are you good on that one?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Did you write a couple books or something like that too? Steve was going to ask you, I think.
Me?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, you.
Well, I did some kids books. They aren't real books, but they're kids books with a lesson. So I did maybe 5 of them when I was retired. So we did one. VCU with Anthony Grant. So the moral of the story was, basically, if you're the best player, you really need to help out those kids that aren't so great. And, it's a neat story, it's that. And then we did one for Kay Yao, and of course, Kay Yao was a tremendous coach at NC State. Kay and I were good friends, and we did one about never giving up, and so that was pretty cool because, not too long after that, of course, she passed away and became, there's a lot of women's basketball programs across the country that, recognize, her and what she did for the fight against breast cancer. And then we did one for Western Kentucky for Mary Cowles. And so we did 4 or 5 of them, and they were pretty good. I thought they were good, but it was pretty cool. Each one of them had their own lesson.
That's great.
Yeah. So it was cool. They were just kids' books.
That's great. So
it's awesome.
What we're going to try to do is wrap it up. We're going to try to bring back down a little memory lane here real quick, and we'll see if we probably should have warned you about this one, but we always do like 3 questions at the end, and they're like memories. So give me your most memorable moment as a coach at Anderson High School, and then maybe when you played in college, and then also then as an AD.
Yeah, well, there's, of course, when you've been a coach 10 years, there's a couple. The one probably I remember, it's kind of funny. That year y'all were talking about when we Frank's senior year, Fergie's senior year. I'll never forget we were playing Oak Hills over there, and basically it was going to be for the number one position in the city and win the conference. I'll never forget this. Oak Hills was in a zone. They were in like a 2-3 zone, and it's the most important possession of the game. And I don't know how much time was left. Not too much. And I think we're down 1, and so we used to run we ran a system where Fergie would kind of like run the baseline, and we'd reverse the ball and set screens and kind of jam down and kind of pick for him, you know what I mean, a lot. Right. And then, we'd flash post and do some other things. But we had this one counter play that we had put in, and I don't think we had ever run it all year. We just basically ran our stuff, and we'd do what we did and get it to Fergie, and Joe would sometimes penetrate, or we'd flash with, Ronnie or Dunaway and, reverse the ball. And Frank calls, I'll never forget this as long as I live, he calls this counter. And I'm going, oh, shit. Will anybody on the team remember this? Because we hadn't practiced it much. We had never run it in the game. And I was like, oh, my goodness. And we run it perfectly. Fergie starts across and then kind of reverses and comes back. I forget who it was, Dunaway or somebody jams down. Fergie gets a wide open, like 14-footer and drills it, and we win the game. So that was one that I certainly remember. That was pretty cool,
Yeah, I guess really cool.
The other one I remember my first year is we we're playing Mount Healthy, who was a very good team, and at home, and we had the ball with maybe, I don't know, hardly any time left. We may be down 1, and we put in a play. We've got a play where what's going to happen is Kevin Galbraith, who, was our best player, he's going to and we're taking it out in the back court, you know what I mean? So Kevin's going to like flash to half court, but he's just kind of a decoy. And I forget who it was, Mark Kelly or somebody. He's going to just kind of like run by, and we're going to fake that pass and try to throw it long to Mark for, a shot around the goal. Well, I think Jack Ritchie was taking the ball out of bounds, and Kevin runs up there, Jack, as part of the the fake. And instead, Jack gets carried away, and he throws it to Kevin at half court with like 2 seconds to go. Kevin turns around, just throws it two-handed, banks it in, and we win the game. So.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So maybe brilliant. You know what I mean? So.
That's the way he designed it.
I remember that one too. There were so many different memories, though. I remember, one year we're playing over at Oak Hills. We get into a little tussle with them, and I mean.
Right in front of the bench.
Yeah, and I mean. And they had a couple football players on their team, and I mean Dayton was in. Joe was over there, and I mean he would have taken on the whole crowd. Didn't matter.
No question about it.
Yeah, we're for Joe to don't get thrown out of the game here, And then he makes a couple. I mean, to be honest, it was like, they kind of screwed up. They kind of pissed off the wrong guy, So Joe, I think, makes like 2 steals and, basically just takes the game over and we win. But, I mean, that was another situation. And, but yeah, I mean, there were so many great memories. That team with, Mark and Rick and Becker and Mark Lennon and Dotson was a really great team too. There's plenty of memories with them. So that was a very, very talented team. We had some good players on the bench too, but, you got Mark, who, I mean, when you think about it, you had Mark and Rick, who both, and Becker, who all 3 were Division I players. And then you had Richard Dotson, who was, he was, how many games he won in the major league. So, Richard was a very good basketball player. He could do a lot of things. So that was a nice team. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you? Anything with college or being either the AD or?
Oh yeah, college. Oh yeah, there's a lot of great memories. I think recently this team that we had last year at ETSU was a tremendous team. We the last game of the year we've got to win to be conference champions by ourselves. We were going to be at least co-champions. We're playing at home, and I think we're down 11 with 3.5 minutes to go, and we wind up winning by make a 3-point shot with 7 seconds to go to win. We at Western Carolina. It was so emotional, and because I was pretty sure that Coach Forbes was probably going to get another job, and for these guys to win, in that environment, and, at home, and it was tremendous. That was
very cool.
I think that game, probably that was our 27th win, and that was an all-time record for ETSU. So that was good. But I also remember when I was at VCU, we beat Duke in the first round of the NCAA tournament.
I remember that. I
had hired Anthony Grant. I'll never forget. I went to practice the day before. We were playing in Buffalo, and I go to practice, and AG calls the guys together and says, "Okay, this is how this game's going to go. We'll go out there, we'll play hard. If you saw us play at VCU, we played 94 feet both ways. We got after people." And so he said, we're going to go out there, we're going to play hard, game will be okay, but then, don't be surprised if Duke gets ahead of us. They're a good team, very well coached, they're a good team. He said, so, if we get down 8, 9, 10 in the second half, don't worry about it. Our pressure will eventually, wear them down. And sure enough, we get down 10 or 11 in the second half, and we continue to press, we continue to play hard and fight. And, they start to miss a couple free throws, and we start to get some momentum. They come down, and they get a turnover. And I guess there's 10 seconds to go in the game. We throw the ball into Eric Maynard. He dribbles it up the court, makes a couple moves, pulls up, makes about a double pump, makes a 15-footer. We beat Duke by 1, and it was just, that was really, really cool. AG had basically, he had basically told him exactly the way it was going to go. I told him after the game, "Man, you are some kind of smart." He laughed, but he's a great coach. You can see that with, what's going on, what he did at Dayton this year.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
yeah, one of my favorite people. But yeah, so that was a tremendous memory, at VCU, and pretty proud of where VCU has come, and being the the really top quality program they are. And of course, I was fortunate enough to hire some people like Sonny Smith and Jeff Capel and Anthony Grant and Shaka. So, those guys are very close, and, they're really good people too. So you want good things for them. So.
Yeah. Coach, I want to go back real quick because I want to make sure to tell you the story about Richdson. We interviewed him, what was it, Danny, about a month ago or so. And one of the things he told us a great story, but he led up to it, is that when he was in high school, he said he always looked to you as a father figure. He looked up to you both on and off the court, and he thought of you as more of a father than a coach. And so I want to make sure to tell you that, and how important that is, and very cool. But he also told us, and I don't know if you know this, Coach, he told us a great story that he grew up not knowing who his father was. I don't know if do you know this story?
I didn't know that. No, I didn't know that.
So fast forward to 2 years ago. So he's 60 years old, and he gets on ancestry.com and does the DNA thing, and he finds his dad. And who his back, what Richdson's background is. He finds his dad, and his dad pitched in the majors, and his name was Turk Farrell. Do you remember Turk Farrell that pitched for the Indians?
Yeah.
Looks just like Rich, and that's his real dad.
How about that?
How about that story?
That's a great story. Wow. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I knew Richard came out of I knew his family situation was a little challenging for him, and how about that? I didn't know that story, but I knew that he and his mom and dad, there was something that wasn't like I guess a traditional family.
Right. Yeah. I wanted to make sure to tell you that, though.
Yeah. Where is Richard? Is he? Do you know?
Yeah. Go ahead, Danny. Tell me where he's at.
He was out in California.
Oh, Richardson, California. Because I had stayed in touch with him a little bit. You know, he was the pitching coach for one of the Sox minor league teams for a while, I think, and did a couple things like that. But I hadn't talked to Richard in a long time. I haven't been able to get a hold of him.
Yeah, he still is, though, right, Danny? But he just didn't have a season this year because of COVID. Where's he at, Danny?
He's, I think, the pitching coach at Birmingham, isn't he?
Yeah.
And that's where, So that's what he's still doing, huh?
Yeah.
But he lives in California in the off season.
Yeah.
Right.
But no, it was great catching up with him. And, you know, Dick, you know, the thing like with Steve and I is, you know, we really appreciate doing this because it was something that we as kids growing up was just awesome to be a part of. You know, we unfortunately missed you because we were coming up through the program, but just those childhood memories that you gave us. And not only that, but, you know, we're friends with Frank. We're friends with Dave Woolprice. You know, guys that you coached that talk glowingly about you. And, and the time that I met you, just when they had the reunion, I could tell right there just in that interview. And just today, just talking with us, how important you are to those guys that you coached in the Anderson community. And it means a lot to us that you did this. And I know that we're going to have a lot of people that are going to really, really look forward to hearing your stories. I know a lot of people in Anderson really, really love you.
Well, that's nice for you to say. I don't think probably after some of those practices we had, they spoke so glowingly of it. You know, they all had a few stories about a few things I might have said or did to them. But, you know, it's funny, you know, you kind of, at the time, you know, and even when you play, you know how it is when you play, coach, really. But, you know, it's kind of neat because it's almost like a unifier for the guys on the team, you know. They kind of go, oh, you remember that time when, you know, he said he did this or he made us do this, you know. So I think, you know, that almost builds a bond amongst, you know, the teammates and all of the guys who had played at Anderson. So, you know, it was interesting to hear when we got them together 10 years of teams, how, you know, they really felt bonded and connected because of what we were able to do. But yeah, no, this has been great for me. I love, you know, like I said, I loved my time at Anderson. You know, I love the guys. I mean, I was so fortunate to have people that bought in and believed in what we were doing. If you got one more minute, I'll never forget this story. This is one, you know, when I got the job, I guess, what year was it? 1972, you know, and I was young, 26. And, you know, I'll never forget, we called the meeting the first day, and you guys are probably too young, but in 1972, you know, the society was kind of mixed about what was going on in regard to the Vietnam War and the way kids dressed, and, you know, and so I'll never forget, I walked into that first meeting, and I look around these guys. I mean, some of these guys had beards, and, you know, they looked like hell, you know, and, you know, didn't look particularly clean, and had sandals on, you know, and I'm going, oh my goodness, what did I get myself into? And I'll never forget, I had the kid that actually played point guard for us was a guy named Ray Leach, and Ray looked like one of those pictures of Jesus Christ. I mean, he had kind of this long, you know, long hair. He had a beard, and he had these penetrating eyes, you know. And I thought, man, oh man, you know, what have I got myself into? And so I said to these guys, I said, okay, so what's y'all's goal for this year? And they said, to win the conference championship. And I said, so I want to get this straight. So this is what you guys are committed. You know, if we're going to win this conference championship, you're going to have to work harder than you've ever, you know, worked in your life. So you guys, you know, and we're going to start Monday. We're going to work. And they go, oh, no, we won't. I said, so you're totally committed. You'll do anything you need to do for us to do this. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, okay, the first thing you're going to do is cut your hair and shave your face and come to school looking pretty good. You know, we're not going to do that. I want to see, you know, do you have the discipline to do what you need to do? Sure enough. I said, Monday morning, you know, for you to come to practice, it wasn't practice, it was preseason. Come to preseason. Every one of them came. I didn't even recognize him. When Ray Leach walked in, I didn't even know who he was. You know, but, you know, that was that time. And I love that team because that team played so hard and gave us everything they got. Came pretty close to winning that conference championship, you know. But yeah, so I'll never forget that as long as I live. Those guys, they made a lot of sacrifice because we, trying to build a culture and an identity with the team, we worked them so hard. Sometimes I go, wow, these kids have, they really, really committed and kind of set the stage for the rest of the time I was there. But we worked really hard, and sometimes I think about the stuff I did that year with years. You could talk to Kevin about it. We played one full court in any bass, do anything you wanted. You just, whoever got the 3 first one, you could tackle them. You could do, great. But those guys, they did everything I ever asked them to do. I was so proud of that team.
Yeah.
Well,
they were tough.
Well, Dick, we really appreciate it. I know we've taken a lot of your time, and we really enjoy it. We could probably talk for 3 or 4 more hours, but we got to wrap this up. So we really appreciate you joining us here tonight.
Well, I appreciate what you guys are doing. It's great, to have something to kind of memorialize all the good things that have happened at Anderson. And, there's been a ton of them, I'm sure, throughout the years after I left. And I know Frank did a really nice job there. And if there's anything I can ever do for you guys or Anderson High School, I'm all in, So I'm really happy that you guys are doing that.
Well,
if you could send me Dotson's contact info, because I'd love to get a hold of him. Yeah.
So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. So Dick, we really appreciate it again. And so for Steve Ellis, Dick Sanders, and Dan Albers, you've been watching this week. We'll catch you next week.